How are you, Bruce?
Good, Mark. How you doing, sir? 6 minutes of raw dynamite.
Chief, we found something.
For tonight's top story, we go to Happy Hollow, where police are searching for clues as to the whereabouts of high school student Ryan Hudson.
Sweetie, do you know that boy?
Yeah, he's in my English class.
The cryptic message left behind has people asking, do you believe in the devil?
Linda Campbell is a small town mom in the 80s in a small town called Happy Hollow seems like a normal mom until the end of the first episode when we discover that maybe she is becoming unhinged with the satanic panic running around her town.
Yeah, that's where you want to drop a satanic panic, is in one of these small towns, because, it's Michigan. Nothing's happening. Nothing. I mean, my parents had a place in Gladwin, Michigan, which is about there. And the cops, you never wanted to speed in that town because they had nothing to do but check you with the radar. I mean, nothing. There was no crime. Drunk farmer, like once a week, that type of deal. You want things to go south in a town that's not ready for it. Because now I'm interested. It's cool thing about The Exorcist, that priest was doubting his faith. That's the guy that I want to see try and exorcise the demon out of this teenager, a guy who's not even sure if this shit's gonna work. That's compelling. So yeah, dump it on Happy Hollow, Michigan in the 80s.
There was a kidnapping in our school, and it was kind of in a ritualistic way. And we're a heavy metal band, but we're kind of losers. Nobody really gives us any attention, and we feel very invisible. But all of a sudden, when somebody goes missing, people start to get a little hysterical, pun intended, and they start to, give us like some attention. And I think we end up just going with it, and it turns out to be a lot more than we anticipated.
You guys heard about Ryan, right?
Yeah?
Well, him being missing for one day has gotten more attention than me being present my entire life.
So you're jealous of a missing person?
There's a lot of layers to what's going on in the story, but the group dynamic between the three of us is definitely one of my favorite parts of the show. And I think that the natural chemistry that we all have as friends is definitely brought to life, not only in a sort of like band camaraderie, but also in the, the group dynamic of this friend group over the course of the show as well.
Evil has taken over this town. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it isn't there.
The show's a great example of what sort of happens. I mean, the title sort of gives it away, but like the kind of hysteria that happens when a group of people, whether it be small town or larger society, what happens when events happen to sort of validate their biggest, deepest fears, and when logic and humanity sort of go out the window. What do you think the show is trying to say about how humans react in situations where, their fears are being, exacerbated, and when they feel like they're in danger?
A collective human experience, especially when you're in a big group of people, you don't want to feel alone, right? We don't want to feel alone in the world. We want our ideas to feel validated. And especially if we're scared of something, there's comfort in other people being scared as well. And what happens is that builds and builds and builds to this hysterical place that we see that happens in our show, but it also happens obviously in real life. This group collective mentality feeds off of each other, and each person's fear feeds off of the others. And it's a really terrifying place to be. I think that the show handles it in like a very creative and thrilling, way, because it is very close to home, and it is very easy to convince yourself that if everybody is feeling this way, I should be feeling this way too. Because I don't want to seem crazy. Because if I feel crazy, I want other people to feel crazy too, so I'm not crazy, right? We justify so much in order to survive as human beings on this planet, and I think that our show really showcases what it means to exploit fear.
I think it opens a conversation about how easy it is to gaslight one another. Like it's really interesting, because back in the day, all you could do was like word of mouth, but now we have the internet. So I think it's just a really good conversation starter of how that entity to always like jump to conclusions has been with humans forever.
Well, while the show is obviously, it's not religious and it's not political, but it is certainly can be seen as a commentary on anybody that is getting their information from one source. And the 80s is a delightful way to frame that. Because everybody was getting their information, especially in a small town. You were either getting it from the 6 o'clock news, the morning paper, or the gossip in town. Full stop. And now we all exist, whether blue, red, purple, everybody's in their own little bubble, getting their own little information. It can really be an echo chamber. And that's very dangerous, I think. I don't know if that was their creator's intention, but I think it's a really valuable thing to think about, and how we can let our own little bubbles make us crazy and hysterical.